Hello, this is Dr. Janson, and I'm in my workshop today making orthotics. Today's Saturday. So on Fridays, I pour the plaster and I'm prepping the casts. And then Saturdays, I'm doing the shells, like doing the basic form of orthotics. This week, something interesting happened. A woman came to pick up her orthotics, and she had found me on the internet, which was interesting because I make a lot of YouTube videos, but believe it or not, I don't really get patients from them. I make YouTube videos to give information for my own patients, basically. But once in a while, I'll get a patient saying, "Oh, I saw you on YouTube." So this woman had found me on the internet, and she said the reason why she wanted me to make her orthotics was that she'd had many orthotics made recently that didn't work. And she remembered many years ago, 10 or 20 years ago, that a podiatrist had used plaster of Paris on her foot to make the cast, and those orthotics were very good. And then after that, she had people using scanners or photographs or foam, and those orthotics were not good. So she went on the internet looking for somebody who used plaster of Paris, which I do use plaster of Paris. But the most important distinction between me and the other podiatrists is that I am making a model of the foot out of plaster of Paris, where the original doctor that she liked was making the negative impression of the foot out of plaster of Paris. So what is the difference between a negative and a positive? So the negative is what the plaster of Paris that the doctor would put on the foot and then pop it off and then send that shell to a factory who would then make the orthotics. So this is the plaster of Paris negative. So this is plaster splints that's put on the patient's foot, and then after quickly, a minute or two, this is popped off, and then this shell can be mailed to the orthotic making factory, who will then make orthotics from this shell. So this is the negative, just like a photograph. It's sort of the mirror image of the foot. Just like in the negative, whatever is dark will turn out light in the positive. And this is the positive. So this is the shape of the patient's foot. And so the patient thought that this was the key to good orthotics, and didn't know anything about this. But this is how she found me, because my specialty is making plaster of Paris positives, not the negatives. Because I'll use foam too, foam or plaster, to make the negative. But I certainly do make a plaster of Paris positive. So positive means it's like a photograph. It looks like the person, and this looks like the man's foot. And the other reason why I wanted to make this video this weekend was this was a particularly interesting cast. The patient is this is not the same patient that was last week, but this one is for next week. He's coming on Monday to pick this up. He's a really big man. He's like 6.5 feet tall, or 6'10" or something. And he has an arthritic foot. He has a lot of pain. And his cast came out really beautifully. He has arthritic prominences here. You see, this is the base of the 5th metatarsal. This is the 2nd metatarsal. You see how prominent that is? And I have carved around it to make it even more prominent. I'm trying to get like shadows on it so you can see how interesting this is. So I've sort of accentuated things on the cast so that we can have the patient put more weight here where he doesn't weight bear at all, and then a lot less weight here because we're going to build around this to take the weight off that poor 2nd metatarsal. And then he has terrible hammer toes, and he has pain on the tips of his toes. So here you can see I carved away here. I took plaster away. So this, I'm going to use this very soft material. This is a 25 durometer ethyl vinyl acetate. And it's really nice and cushy material, thick too, because he's a big guy. So thick but cushy material. And then that material will create a toe crest here to baby and cradle and comfort his poor hammer toes. So the tips of the toes won't hit the ground, like they've been doing. So I just thought this cast was interesting. It's a really giant foot. I don't know if you can see how big this foot is. So this orthotic, I mean, this man wears like size 14 shoes or 15 or something. Look at the size of this thing that I'm going to make his orthotic out of. Woo! Isn't it big? Yeah, he's a really nice man too. He's so nice. I'm so happy to help him. He's going to walk so much better. And he goes to Italy next week. He's going on vacation. So he's going to go with his comfy orthotic. But anyways, that's the difference between a negative plaster cast and a positive plaster cast. So I just wanted to make that clear so people that watch videos will understand the difference. It doesn't really matter if this is with the factories, whether it's plaster or foam or even just a photograph of the foot. You know, actually, I think rather than a plaster negative or a foam negative, it might be better just to have a photograph of the foot or the scanners, which is a series of photographs of the foot. Because what they do in these factories is they're just going to take a photograph of the negative. And that puts, you know, a layer of reproduced information. You know, like if you took a photograph of a photograph of a photograph, it would start to get blurry. You know what I mean? So if you took a negative and then took a photograph of the negative, that's 2 layers of reproduction. So it's not as accurate because they don't actually make a positive. They don't fill, very rarely do they make a positive. Usually what they do is they'll just take a photograph and that information will go to the computer to tell, you know, the machine or the human how to make the orthotic. So rather than take a photograph of the negative, just take a photograph of the foot so you have less layers of reproduction. So a scanner actually should be better than the plaster of Paris negative, which was the opposite of the patient's experience, the one who found me on the internet. I don't know why she had like 4 pairs of orthotics, and you know I hate to be the 5th one making a pair of orthotics. They're very expensive, but I'm gonna do it right. Okay, I thought you would enjoy seeing the difference between the two positive and negative casts. All right, have a great weekend. See you in the next video. Bye.